Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and I am the host of the Dark Wolf's Den radio show. I would ask that you please take a moment to rise or at least put your hand over your heart for the playing of the national anthem. Thank you, folks. Please stay as you are for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get this party started.
Unlocked and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in a world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Eyes and the alibis. What a sinner is it in her?
Biden's lost in a wonderland of confusion. Biden's lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Is this real? He has delusions. He's lost in a wonderland of confusion.
is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Ripon Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
Coming to you from a secret cave, hidden deep within the wilderness, this is the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and we are broadcasting live from a secret cave, hidden deep within the wilderness of Tennessee. That's right. We're ripping through the electromagnetic soup, we're tearing through the atmosphere, and we're tunneling away into your radio like a quantum particle. This is the Dark Wolf's Den radio show for Thursday, December the 16th, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are going to do something a little different. We have really dived deep into some heavy information on our Thursday night Freedom Flame series, and worry not, that series is nowhere near over. However, we are going to take a bit of a holiday break for the next 2-3 weeks maybe, and come back to the Freedom Flame series at the beginning of next year, as it is the holiday season. I would like to celebrate just a little bit with you guys. And of course, as you guys remember from last year, we are trying to bring back a classic Victorian era holiday tradition. In the Victorian times, it was customary to gather around the hearth, around the fireplace, and tell spooky and scary Christmas ghost stories. And we did the first episode of Spooky Christmas Stories last year, and this year we're going to do episode number 2. We found some more stories that we missed last year that we're going to try to include in this year's Spooky Christmas. That's right. Come back next week. We'll do the regular Christmas stories. We have all kind of Christmas fun planned this year, folks, so stick around and see what we have in store. Like I said, tonight is going to be Spooky Christmas Stories, and we're going to dive deep down the Spooky Christmas Story rabbit hole here in just a moment. But first, let's go ahead and see who all we have in our YouTube chat rooms tonight in both the Ripon Rabbit Hole YouTube and the Dark Wolf's Den YouTube channel. How you guys doing over here tonight? Good to see everybody. Like JoJo's waving in with the hello. Glad to see you there, Joe over in the Dark Wolf's Den show, as well as Sandy B says, hi, JoJo's. Hi, Sandy B. JoJo says, hot chocolate cookies settles in the comfy chair. Check, check, and check. There you go. Ready for some fun Christmas stories, or spooky Christmas stories in this case. I hope you guys' ears aren't bleeding. I know I'm supposed to talk on the radio. There's a reason I'm not paid to sing on the radio. So I do apologize if I gave you a headache or if your ears are bleeding any. That is most likely my fault for trying to sing there. Michael Fontaine, it shut off again. YouTube's so goofy. I don't know why it does that to us every single show. It gets a couple people in here and they shut it down as if we're not doing anything. I guess they're hoping everybody will leave and ruin my channel, right? Leave it to YouTube to do something underhanded and dirty because, they're communist trash. Over in the Ripon Rabbit Hole chat, Sandy B, no one here yet, waiting for Christmas stories. She was the first in the chat room over there. Errol Taylor says, hi, Errol. Terry Taggart with a spooky ghost dropping in. Glad to see you, Terry. Be Well says, Merry Christmas and be well. Well, Merry Christmas, be well. I think I may know who that is. Michael Fontaine says, I'm waiting for Christmas. Me too. One of my favorite holidays, honest to goodness. There's such a magic about this time of year, right, guys? Just so amazing. Lobo Ohio says, hi, all. Hi, Lobo. Glad to have you here, my friend. Who else we got here scrolling down? Bill Knight. Hey, Bill, glad to see you, my friend. I was getting a little worried about you. Hadn't heard from you in a couple days. Raider Champion dropping in. Extended the water vid will be out in 1 hour. So after this show, guys, make sure you hop on over to the Be Well channel over, also run by Mr. Raider Champion, and check out that video. At least I hope I got that right. He'll correct me in the chat here in a moment if I'm wrong, I'm sure. Marcy Chan says, hello, Marcy. Who else we got here? Actually, she said, be safe, Alva, and what happened. So glad to have you here, Marcy Chan. Go-Kart Bob. The LA Lightning Bolts are making a comeback. I'm assuming we're talking about sports because I don't watch sports, so it's all Greek to me. Go-Kart Bob, glad to have you here, my friend. Looks like we got quite a good routine here, or group of people here tonight, guys. We have something fun in store. I was able to find not only spooky Christmas stories, Raider Champion with a thumbs up, it is on the Be Well channel. Check that out after this. It is not only spooky Christmas stories, but ladies and gentlemen, these spooky Christmas stories are true. That makes them even creepier in my book. And of course, whether you are listening in YouTube chat rooms over there or around the world on the Ripon Common Sense Radio Network or the RiponRabbitHole.com, we appreciate having every last one of you guys along for the ride. And of course, before we can dig into these spooky Christmas stories, we have two more fun little segments to do. The first of which we call Today in History. On this day in 1773, the Boston Tea Party incident occurs. Sons of Liberty protesters throw tea shipments into the Boston harbor in protest against the British-imposed Tea Act. This, of course, would later lead to the sparking of the Revolutionary War, and that occurred on this day in 1773. And that is today's segment of Today in History. Say what? Our quote of the day today, ladies and gentlemen, comes from A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. One of my favorite, if not my all-time favorite Christmas story, and the only spooky Christmas story that is popular that made it out of the Victorian era, right? The line from this particular book we're quoting today is as follows, and I quote, "There is nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humor," end quote. And I could not agree more. Nothing is more irresistibly contagious than a good laugh and good humor. And we will find that as we go through the holiday season, spreading such cheer. But tonight, we're going to spread a little spookiness instead. What do you guys say? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that is today's quote from Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. And that is today's segment of Say What? And like I mentioned a moment ago, Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol is the most famous Christmas ghost story. But that one's a fiction one. What if there were true Christmas ghost stories? That would be a little more disturbing, right? Well, that's exactly what I have found. At least they claim to be true. You can be the final judge on that, but let's dig into some like this one here, the Christmas Church Ghost. It says, I was playing hide and seek with the other little kids from my mom's village of Sata, Western Samoa. I was quite young then, so I always followed my older cousin around. It was the middle of the night, and most of the kids were used to hiding anywhere in the dark. I wasn't used to it as I was only there for the Christmas holidays. I actually live in Australia. Since we were all hiding in the graveyard, we were able to find our way around in the light cast by the church. We hid in the shadows and waited for the boy who was it. We could hear him counting, so we kept quiet. The boy was pretty loud. We wondered what he was making a fuss about, so we went to see. He later told us he had walked into the church, and he thought his brother was hiding there. He saw a boy standing right in front of the altar. He didn't know if it was his brother because the boy's back was turned. He ran up and tapped the boy on his shoulder. As soon as he did, the strange boy disappeared, and our friend fainted. We went home to tell his parents. We got back to find him still lying there, dead still. His parents took him home, and we never played in the graveyard at night again. We later found out that the boy's brother had been home the whole time. He hadn't been at the church at all. What really scared us was that the boy who fainted had been ill since that night and still hasn't recovered. Whoever was in the church must have been pretty mad that we kids disturbed him. Sincerely, Paulina T. Very, very creepy story indeed. Do not be playing hide and seek in a graveyard on Christmas or any other time for that matter, right? But especially on Christmas. Our next story is called The Christmas Visitor. I had an unusual visitor on Christmas Day 2008, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't Santa Claus passing by my house in Bloomington, Indiana. The day started in typical fashion with the opening gifts around the Christmas tree. I served an early Christmas dinner for family and friends, and everybody departed by 5 p.m., except my sister and brother-in-law, who live with me. They were asleep in the bedroom at the end of a hall, but their door was open. I went into my bedroom with my dog, Toby, and shut the door securely. Toby curled up at the foot of my bed to sleep, like he always does. It was chilly, so I pulled the blankets and comforter up around my head and curled up to nap for an hour. I was just dozing off when I heard the latch of my bedroom door open. I waited several seconds for my sister or brother-in-law to say whatever they'd come to say, but there was no other sound. It was almost 7 p.m., so my bedroom was pitch black. I'd left lights on in the kitchen and the bathroom, and there were lots of Christmas lights in the living room, so the hallway would have been lit well. I would be able to see whoever was at the door just by lifting my head. I pushed the blankets down and lifted my head from the pillow, but just as I would have been able to see who was in the doorway, an extremely bright light hit me right in the face. I shielded my eyes and yelled, "Turn out that bleepin' light! You're blinding me!" The light immediately disappeared, and I heard the bedroom door latch close. My bedside light is a touch lamp, so I tapped on it and looked around the bedroom. There was no one there except me and Toby. Toby jumped off the bed and went to the door without showing any signs of alarm. At first, I wasn't frightened because Toby is a Dutch Shepherd and was trained to be an excellent watchdog. Since Toby was already up, I decided to go let him outside to see what Sis or her husband needed. When I went into the hallway, I could see both of them still in bed. I took Toby to the living room to let him outside, and there was nobody there either. Ordinarily, I'm not a skittish person, and strange noises or lights wouldn't alarm me, but this situation was just too eerie, and the light made my skin crawl. Let me add that the latch on my bedroom door is broken in such a way that the inside handle must be jiggled for the latch to pop out and engage. It makes a very distinctive sound that I'm used to listening for, because if it doesn't latch, the door swings open. I am absolutely positive that the door was latch closed when I got into bed, just as I'm certain that it was the door latch I heard during the incident. When I left the bedroom, the door was latched closed again. I couldn't understand how my sister and brother-in-law could have come into my room and then returned to their own bed and crawled under the covers in a few seconds it took me to reach the hallway. But I figured it had to be one of them, since Toby always barks and growls at anybody and everything he doesn't immediately recognize. When my brother-in-law got up to get ready for work that night, I asked him what he'd wanted earlier in the evening when he opened my door. He looked puzzled and said, "I never got up, and I certainly never opened your door. I slept soundly the whole time I was in bed." Okay, so I asked Sis, "Do you want something earlier this evening when you opened my door?" She also looked puzzled and told me, "I dozed off and on, but never got out of the bed, and I never saw or heard anything in the hallway." She leaves their bedroom door open all the times, and she faces the hallway so she can see if anyone is coming or going in the house. So who was my special Christmas visitor, and how did they get in and out so quickly? Like most people, the thoughts of loved ones are always close at hand during the holiday season. When I first went to lie down, I was thinking how happy I was that my small family had enjoyed a pleasant Christmas, but it would have been so much better if my mother and brother had still been alive to share it with us. I would like to think that my brother's spirit stopping by to say, "Merry Christmas, I still think of you too," is what I seen. I haven't been able to debunk this strange event or find any kind of rational explanation. I'm half afraid that my heart stopped during my sleep, and the light that I saw was the bright light people report after near-death experiences. Leave it to me to see the stairway to heaven and ruin my chance at eternal paradise by saying, "Turn out that bleeping light." I've made a mental note that if I ever see another bright light to clean up my language, just in case. Scarlet Dragon. So once again, very spooky, very creepy thing going on here. And we have time for one more of these stories. This one kind of blurs the lines, if you ask me. And you'll understand what I mean here in just a moment. This one is called Santa Stuffs the Stockings. When I was 9 years old, I could not get to sleep on Christmas Eve because I was excited about presents, and I was wondering if my parents had anything to do with the gifts that I had received from Santa the year before. We lived in Texas back then. That night it was hot because the heater was on. I got thirsty. I got out of bed and cracked my door open to make sure no one was out in the living room, so I could get something to drink without being seen. I also wanted to spy. When I opened the door, I saw someone bent over, and then he stood up. It was Santa Claus, dressed in the red and white get-up. Strangely, I could see the Christmas lights from the tree shining through him. He was taking the stockings down off the mantel and placing them on the coffee table. When he started to turn around to put the next stocking on the table, I closed the door and jumped into bed. The next morning, I woke up and told my sister what I had seen. I told her where he had put the stockings. When we went into the living room, the stockings were where I said he had put them. We both turned and looked at each other and froze for a moment. From then on, I have told everyone that I believe in Santa, Misty G. So this young lady here seen Santa, but she may not be the only one to have ever seen Santa. Check this out. It's called Santa at the Bedroom Door. Once again, remember, these are apparently real, true stories from Christmas. It was Christmas Eve, 1961. We were living in Boardman, Ohio. My bedroom was at the end of the house. I'd gone to sleep. I didn't know what time it was, but I knew it was very late when I suddenly woke up. I was staring at my bedroom door, which was catty-corner from my bed. As the door slowly opened, I pretended to close my eyes because I didn't want my mother or father to catch me up in the middle of the night. There was a nightlight in the hallway and one behind the dresser in my room, so there was some light. I was totally astonished, however, by who it was that opened the bedroom door. I found myself looking at a man dressed in a red suit. He had white trim around his waist like fur and a long white beard, and was wearing a Santa cap. He had red pants and black boots. If I close my eyes, I can still see Santa standing in my doorway. It made such an impression on me. He stood there and looked at me for a few seconds, then closed the door. I pulled the blankets over my head. I was so scared. Finally, I looked out, but no one was there. The next day, I asked my mother if she or my father had been out of bed the previous night. My mother said no. In fact, my sister was only 4 months old, and my mother told me she'd slept through the night for the first time since my sister was born. Neither of my parents had gotten up. Both of them were tired, and they both slept. So I don't know who or what looked in my bedroom that night. When I told my mother I'd seen Santa, she got really mad at me and told me that I had not. But I know what I saw. It was Santa Claus. I swear this story did happen, and I know I wasn't dreaming. Carrie K. So again, we have Santa showing up in places that Normally, he would not show up places where he could be seen, right? It's not weird for Santa to be in people's houses on Christmas Eve. It is weird for people to catch Santa being in their house on Christmas Eve. But apparently, this isn't as rare as one would think it would be. Check this out: Bristol, England, 2000. I am 14 now, but this happened back in 2000 in my old house in Bristol, England. I was with my mom and dad and my sister. It was about midnight on Christmas Eve, and I was the only one awake because I was really excited. I could hear these big footsteps in my living room. I was quite scared, and I could also hear bells tingling above me. So I wanted to see what was going on. I walked down the stairs very slowly, and I could see this big man putting presents around my living room. I wanted to say something, but I was too scared to do it because I thought he would be angry. I ran back upstairs and went back to sleep. I was so convinced that I saw the real Santa and told everyone in the morning, but no one believed me. Alex H. Our next story comes from New York City in 2002, 2004, and 2007. It was Christmas Eve of 2002 in New York. My parents had invited some friends and relatives over for a dinner, sort of like a Christmas Eve celebration. After that, I decided to go to my room to watch some television, but there was nothing good to watch. I then found myself pacing back and forth in the hallway. My house is so big, so there was no one with me. Everyone was in the living room watching a movie I wasn't interested in. About 7 minutes into my pacing, I saw a tall, fat figure scurry away about 20 feet from me. It was crouched down, too. It was even wearing some sort of Santa Claus suit. I don't believe in Santa, but this just freaked me out. There was a strange man in my house. I quickly ran to where my parents were and told them all about it. They grinned at me and said jokingly, maybe it was Santa Claus. I didn't believe that, so I just sat down in the living room with my family and everyone else. Then it occurred again on Christmas Eve, 2004. I remember it more vividly than the last one. I was lying on the couch in the living room. My parents were in the kitchen having a conversation about a business blog or something. Suddenly I saw a huge man, about 7 or 8 feet tall, crawl underneath the tree and just vanish. Before it disappeared, it looked at me and said, "Shh." Very strange, so I went in the kitchen and sat with my parents. Similar happenings followed the occurring Christmases. I recall one in '07. It was daylight this time, and I just happened to see another tall figure with a Santa hat trudge by me for 2 seconds. Then it was gone. This really happened. Claxton Kalmbach. Interesting story from Mr. Claxton here. Scary and weird, undoubtedly, but incredibly interesting. I have one here from Memphis, Tennessee. Everybody knows I'm a stickler for Tennessee, as that's where I live. This story comes from 1980s and 2009. Check this out. I grew up in a suburb of Memphis, Tennessee. In the 1980s, I was 8 or 9 years old. My parents and I were coming home from a Christmas party on Christmas Eve. When we pulled up in the driveway, we saw Santa Claus in a sleigh hovering above our house. All we could hear were sleigh bells. The sleigh was illuminated so that we could see Santa in full outfit in the sleigh. I remember seeing reindeer, but I don't know how many there were. Santa waved at us and flew off in the sleigh. I'll never forget it, and I'll never forget my dad's face of total shock. He was an air traffic controller, and when he went back to work after the holidays, he asked about it, and nothing came up. In another bizarre twist, on Black Friday in 2009, I was waiting in line at a local Target store and broke out into conversation with another lady in line. We were talking about Christmas shopping, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she mentioned that her brother had seen Santa Claus in his sleigh 2 years before. I stood with my mouth wide open because I couldn't believe it. Every Christmas Eve I still think about him and look outside to try to get a glimpse. Mrs. Wages. So, again, many people spotting the jolly old elf, and this isn't necessarily a new phenomenon. In Scotland, 1978, someone writes, an old friend came to see me a couple of weeks ago. We lost touch years ago, but he managed to trace me, and he brought me a Christmas card. After a few minutes, I asked him if he remembered the Christmas Eve about 30 years ago when we were outside our houses. We grew up next to each other. It must have been around 7:30 on a clear night when we suddenly heard a bell or bells in the distance getting closer real fast. As we both looked up, there was the reindeer, the sleigh, and Santa flying very fast and low over my house. It was brief, but we both ran to tell our families. Of course, everyone laughed, but I tell you it was real. So when my friend turned up, I asked him if he remembered, and he said of course he did, but he didn't like telling people about it now. You can imagine why. Jimmy. And again, that was in Scotland in 1978, but there's one even further back than that. We've heard about the 1968 Santa, and here's one from 1969. I had an experience when I was 3 years old and still young enough to wear footed pajamas. The year was maybe 1969, Christmas Eve. I wanted to see what Santa had brought me, so I quietly walked down the hallway and looked around the corner to our living room. I saw my parents and someone I didn't know hanging out around our Christmas tree. The stranger was an old guy with a white beard and hair with a red suit. I quickly went back to my room as fast as I could with footed pajamas and slid into bed. I told my mom what happened many years later as she insisted that I was dreaming or that it was my dad. That was impossible because my dad was sitting in a chair beside the stranger and my mom was standing right next to my dad. I'm African American, and during that time, the tenants in our building were all African Americans, so Santa stood out. And speaking of standing out, we are outstandingly made it to the break. So, ladies and gentlemen, we once again do have to take a network break right here. My name's Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and you're listening to the Dark Wolf's Den radio show, exclusively on Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, the Ripon Rabbit Hole. We'll be right back with the second half after these messages. Don't you touch that dial. That's right.
We gotta stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Oh yeah, Jerry Hicks on a Thursday night with a very spooky Christmas Stories #2. Hi everyone, it's AJ the Ripon Rabbit. Are you enjoying tonight's Dark Wolf's Den radio show? I know I am. If you are and you haven't done so already, please make sure to thumb up that video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell. You'll get our notifications every time we go live. We're here every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights, bringing you the very best of Common Sense Radio, the Ripon Rabbit Hole. I'll return again tomorrow night, Friday, December 17th. Can you believe it? December already. Starts at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, as all shows do. Join me down through the rabbit hole of Christmas past, present, and future. We're going to take a look at all of the ghosts and perhaps be visited by each and every one of them. The Christmas of past, present, and future. That's tomorrow night, Friday, December 17th. Then, Holiday Magic, Saturday, December 18th. That's right. Rumor is Santa Claus will be here Saturday, December 18th. Tell your family, tell your friends, more important, tell your family's friends that Santa Claus is coming to town Saturday night, December 18th, in a special broadcast we call Holiday Magic. It's going to be an evening full of holiday cheer nonetheless. Warm yourself up a cup of hot cocoa for this one. Then we'll end out the weekend right together with you Sunday night, December 19th, with a look at the naughty list. Have you ever been on the naughty list? If you have, I want to hear from you. If you've ever gotten coal, tell me in 30 seconds or less your naughty list story. It's real easy to do. Jump on over to riponrabbithole.com. That's riponrabbithole.com. And there on the bottom of every single web page is a little red shout out button. It's a microphone, and it allows you to record 30 seconds of your naughty list story for me. If you don't have a naughty list, by all means, you can tell me a suggestion of somebody who you think deserves to be on the naughty list. But it's going to be a great way to head into the Christmas week, and of course end out the weekend together right with you. So you can do that shout out as many times as you'd like. You can send up to 30 seconds per time, and you can do so anonymously if you wish. You can just choose a different name to be identified as. Either way, we'll be playing those Sunday night, December 19th. We'll return back to Thursday, December 16th, a spooky Christmas stories number 2 with your host, Jerry Hicks, and the Dark Wolf's Den Show. You're listening to the Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, the Ripon Rabbit Hole.
Check out the new book, Moon Madness, by first-time author J.W. Hicks. Originally conceived in 2015, this fictional novel only becomes more and more relevant by the day. What would you do if you found out that almost everything your government has told you was a lie? In the year 2103, Jeremy Carlson and his fiancée Brittany Parsons decide to take a vacation in a lunar cabin. Everything was going great until strange things started happening after they went to sleep. Are they being abducted, or are they catching moon madness, a strange phenomena thought to be caused by the lower gravity of the moon? After a fateful meeting with a guy named Zach Marshall, things become a whole lot more clear. They are now determined to expose the governing body of the Earth and Moon, known as the World Council. Will the three of them succeed, or will things go horribly wrong? Find out in the great novel, once again, by first-time author J.W. Hicks, called Moon Madness. Available now on Amazon, $12 for paperback, $7 for Kindle. Not adding this to your bookshelf would be madness.
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and welcome back to the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den radio show for Thursday, December the 16th, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, so far in the second half, if you're just joining us, we've been going over true but spooky Christmas stories. And it turns out Christmas Eve is quite a magical day, whether it be for spooky or regular magic, right? A magical day nonetheless. And we're going to continue to dive into these spooky true Christmas stories. The next one is called The Figure in the Recliner. It says, my mother, to whom I was very close, passed away in 1964 when I was 17 years old. I left home that year and moved to Ontario from Nova Scotia. In 1969, I met a girl whom I will call Karen, and we got married in March of 1970. In December of 1971, we were expecting our first child. We were living in a small 1.5 bedroom bungalow. There was a fireplace in the living room. My wife and I loved the fireplace. We had it lit every night. It was Christmas Eve, 1971, and we had just finished putting the gifts under the tree, and a nice fire gave off a beautiful glow. On the tree, one string of lights, which was supposed to flash, had stopped several days before. It was 5 minutes to midnight when the fireplace suddenly just about went out, and the string of lights started to flash, and the other lights stopped flashing. My wife and I were sitting on the floor, and it had become very chilly in the room. I looked over to my lazy boy chair, and a figure was sitting there. My mother, with a big, beautiful smile on her face. My wife, who had never met my mother, said she could see the same thing. This ghost never spoke, but just kept looking at me and my wife and smiling. At 12 midnight, the fire in the place started up again, and the lights on the tree stopped flashing, and the others started flashing again. I looked over in the chair, and the ghost was gone. No matter what I did to those Christmas lights, they never flashed again. That's Arthur H. We thank you for your contribution, Arthur. Our next story is called The Mistletoe Bride. In the early 17th century, a young woman named Annie was to be married on Christmas Day at Barneshill House in Hampshire, England. After the ceremony and feast, as was tradition at the time, the guests were all set to carry the bride to the bedchamber. Annie suggested a game to be played and asked for a 5-minute head start before the guests came to find her. Everyone searched long and hard for Annie, but no signs of her could be found. At first they thought she had played a merry trick, but soon a sense of unease fell over the guests. The bridegroom, Lord Lavelle, was distraught, and guests began to whisper that she must have fled. Days, weeks, months, and years passed, and Lord Lavelle never stopped looking for his bride. One day, some 50 years after her disappearance, Lord Lavelle was up in the huge attic of the sprawling mansion, where he began tapping on the oak paneling. As he knocked, a long-hidden secret door sprung open, and inside he found an ornate wooden chest. He pried open the heavy wooden lid, and there, still in her wedding dress and clutching her mistletoe bouquet, were the skeletal remains of his beloved. The scratch marks on the inside of the lid of the chest attested to her desperate but futile effort to flee from her hiding space. Now that is incredibly creepy. Moral of the story, don't hide in large creepy chests, right? Our next story is called White Figure in the Hall. My parents and I lived in the small home that was around 90 years old. The year would have been 1996. We lived there from the time I was 7 years old to the time I was 19. From the very day that we moved in, I felt that I was not alone. One year around Christmas time, I was having a friend spend the night. The heat had just shut off briefly, and she and I were sitting in the living room watching television when the temperature dropped substantially. As I rose to turn up the heat, the Christmas tree began to shake violently. Ornaments were falling off right and left, and she and I were terrified. We ran upstairs and lay down in our bed. My white cat curled up with us, and my door was open slightly. When I gazed out at the dark hallway, I was horrified to see a tall white figure run down the hall. I turned to my friend, and she acknowledged that she had seen the exact same thing. She never spent the night again. Yeah, that also is incredibly creepy. That's from Caitlin Williams. Could you imagine seeing a white figure just running down the hall? Oh, that would be incredibly creepy, right? Let's see what else we have here. Here we are, the house on Diablo Drive. When I first moved to California from Long Island, New York, we rented a house on Diablo Drive. For anyone who may know, Diablo means devil in Spanish. This house had a definite vibe, and I picked up on it from day one. As a vulnerable adolescent, I think it took notice of me too. From the outside, it loomed atop a tall hill with an intricate set of stairways and paths that led to various levels of the home, since it was built into the hillside. Beyond the back patio, it was all woods. Now, I grew up playing in the woods of New York my whole life, but these woods were different. The tall and mangled trees barely let in any light, so it was perpetually dark and creepy. The first real incident I can remember happened one night when my friend Sarah was sleeping over. We were laying in the bed with the lights off, talking quietly, when my small TV turned on. Quick side note, this TV was just used for playing videotapes and had no kind of cable connection or antenna. So the TV turns on, and at first it's just the blue screen I'm used to seeing. Then, as if someone is controlling a phantom remote, the TV starts rapidly flipping channels until it arrives at a screen of blaring static. At this point, I jumped out of bed, thinking one of us must be laying on the remote. Suddenly, the static stops and figure emerges on the screen of my TV. He appears to be a reverend, vehemently preaching that hell is a real place and only Jesus can save us from eternal damnation. After finding the remote in its usual spot on my dresser, we booked it out of there and spent the night on my couch. That Christmas, we hired a pet sitter to take care of our cats while we were vacationing in Mexico. It turns out she had an encounter with our resident poltergeist, too, when she went over to feed our cats on Christmas Day. She had just set meals down for the kitties when our Christmas tree started shaking violently. She knew it wasn't the cats because all three were eating quietly in the kitchen. The tree shook so violently it actually toppled over. She brushed it off as an earthquake, not uncommon in California, until she heard a door slam, then another door slam, then another. The way she described it, she walked into the long hallway with all of our bedrooms, and when she looked down it, she saw various doors opening and slamming closed in rapid succession. Needless to say, she got out of there quickly and refused to go back with her boyfriend. And that is from Cody Furman. Thank you, Cody, for that addition to our creepy Christmas stories. Our next story is called The Ghostly Christmas Choir. And once again, these are all claimed to be true stories from real people. That is what makes it incredibly creepy, right? On Christmas Eve night, 1978, at about 3 a.m. in Klamath Falls, Oregon, I was suddenly awakened by a choir singing. The house was new construction, miles from the nearest church. I strained to hear any words that I could understand or a tune that I could identify, but I could not understand the language or the tune. I did get a feeling of angelic exaltation, reverence, and gladness of heart. This was truly a heavenly choir lifting their voices on high, singing Hosanna in the highest in an unknown tongue, without accompaniment of instruments. I examined the television, but it was turned off, as was the radio. I explored outside, but the singing was not heard outdoors. The way the countless male, female, and children's voices entwined together, the tonals going from operatic highs to the deepest bass voices in perfect harmony. It must have lasted about 10 minutes, but it was touching for an eternity. And that's given to us by someone simply called Mel. Well, thank you, Mel, also for your addition to these creepy real life stories. Our last couple stories are going to be pretty short. This one is called The Headless Horseman at Ross Hall in Suffolk, England. Roos Hall, apparently it's Roos, not Ross, my apologies, in Suffolk lays claim to being one of the most haunted houses in England. The 16th century hall has a number of sinister connections, including a gruesome hanging tree, an oak tree planted at the side of the old gibbet where numerous criminals were hung. To make things even spookier, inside one of the building's cupboards, the mark of a devil's cloven hoof is said to be imprinted. But perhaps the most dramatic haunting is supposed to happen every Christmas Eve. Legend has it that a headless horseman clatters down the driveway with his 4 black horses, pulling a phantom coach, terrifying anyone who witnesses him. That comes to us from Claire Starkley, and actually Claire has given a couple of these stories tonight. She was also the one that gave us the story about 17th century England. The next one up on the list is called, it's also from Claire Starkley, called Headless Anne Boleyn at Hever Castle in Kent, England. Anne Boleyn is notorious as the second of King Henry VIII's ill-fated wives. To marry Anne, Henry spent years seeking a divorce from his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, and went on to sever England's relationship with the Catholic Church in Rome, forever changing the course of British history. Despite the lengths he went to ensnare her, Henry soon grew tired of Anne and, choosing to believe the idle gossip surrounding her, had her beheaded in 1536. A number of reports exist of the ghost of Anne Boleyn, but perhaps the most affecting is the version that is said to haunt her childhood home, Hever Castle in Kent. Some say that every Christmas Eve, the spectral figure of Anne Boleyn can be seen slowly gliding across the bridge over the River Eden towards her family's home, where she was at her happiest. Again, very, very creepy, and thank you again, Claire Starkley. One last one before we close it out. This is called Christmas Apparition at Alcatraz. The island of Alcatraz off the coast of San Francisco had a long and spooky history. In its earlier days, Native Americans allegedly used to banish miscreants to the island as punishment, where they were reportedly plagued by the local spirits. Alcatraz, of course, became a notorious federal prison in 1934, housing criminals such as Al Capone before it was shut down in 1963. Today, visitors to the island report hearing screams, the clanging of metal doors, and the sound of voices within the halls. One of the most famous tales associated with the island supposedly occurred in the 1940s, when Warden James Johnston held a Christmas Day party at his residence for the staff at the prison. The good cheer is said to have been brought to a swift halt when an apparition sporting mutton chop, whiskers, and a gray suit appeared. The temperature in the room plummeted and the fire blew out, before returning to normal when the spirit disappeared about a minute later. The rattled guards were too scared to stay in the residence, and the rest of the Christmas celebration ended abruptly. And that is our list of spooky holiday-themed stories for this year, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you have very, very much enjoyed this. I know I have. What is really creepy to me, once again, is the fact that these weren't fictional, made-up stories like last year's spooky Christmas stories. However, these were legit, true stories that have happened to people on Christmas Eve. So stay safe out there, folks. Watch out for the Santa Claus and try to steer clear of all the Christmas apparitions. In the end, ladies and gentlemen, that's all you can do. And have a wonderful Christmas holiday. We got to close it out. That's right, that's it for this episode of the Dark Wolf's Den radio show for Thursday, December the 16th, 2021. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, the den may be closing, but don't you worry. The weekend fun has only just begun. That's right. Make sure you come back tomorrow, Friday, December 17th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, and join our buddy AJ the Ripon Rabbit for an all-new episode of the Ripon Rabbit Hole live show. This time he's going to take to the airwaves to talk about the ghosts of Christmas past, Christmas present, and of course Christmas to come, Christmas future. And that is going to be an incredibly exciting episode to review the Christmases we've had and look forward to that which may be. I am very excited about that. And matter of fact, I'm excited about the entire weekend lineup because it's full of holiday magic. Speaking of holiday magic, make sure you come back to AJ the Ripon Rabbit's Ripon Rabbit Hole YouTube channel on Saturday, December the 19th, 18th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central for the annual Holiday Magic Show. AJ always puts on an incredible presentation, and I have it on good word. Well, there's a rumor that old Santa Claus himself, the big jolly elf, is going to be joining us, or AJ at least, on Saturday. Sunday, December the 18th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. You do not want to miss this episode, folks. This is some of the best fun of the holiday season, at least in my opinion. Then again, I may be a little bit biased. And on Sunday, December 19th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, our buddy AJ the Ripon Rabbit comes back to the airwaves one last time to round the weekend out right with you as he discusses the naughty list. Are you on the naughty list? I might be, I'm not sure. I probably earned my spot on there once or twice, right? If you know somebody who has earned their spot on the naughty list, we want to know about it. We want to hear from you. What you're going to do is you're going to go over to the riponrabbithole.com. That is RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. Over there, you're going to find at the bottom of every page a big round button that says record. That is active all year long. Normally, you can just send us a 30-second shout out that we put on the air, but what we want you to do is go and click that button and record for us and tell us who is on the naughty list this year. That's right. AJ is going to be playing them all on Sunday, December the 19th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Pacific and 10/9 Central. I am most assuredly looking forward to that one. And also, while you're on the riponrabbithole.com, make sure you do sign up for the free VIP pass. Always will be free and always has been. And that's going to get you access to all the rest of the fun stuff on the site. Like what, you may ask? Well, if you ever want to watch an episode that we've done and you don't want to deal with that trash site called YouTube, make sure you go over to the riponrabbithole.com, click on the live button, and drop down to the on demand, and you can find every episode we have done. Once again, you can bypass that trash site called YouTube and go right to our site. Also, while you're over there, you can check out our groups. You can make your own group if you don't like what's over there, or check out the plethora of different groups. I have a group over there for the Dark Wolf's Den Show. AJ has a Ripon Rabbit Hole group. Our buddy Juanito has a Lucid Dreaming group, and there's so much more. I believe TNV, Tuesday Night Videos, may have a group over there too. Come on over and check it out. Our community generated press. That means you guys are the one that generate the information. We don't go with the big boys. We like to appreciate our community, and we love to hear from you guys. Matter of fact, we'd love for you to go over to the special section called Down the Rabbit Hole. That is our exclusive privatized social media section where you can drop down the rabbit hole and share information with the rest of the rabbits, information that those other trash sites like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and all those don't like having up, you know, the truth. Come on over there and share the truth with us. We'll be glad to have it. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of AJ the Ripon Rabbit, Chick Mandela Effect, Michael Musco, Walt House, everyone involved in Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, my name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And remember, until next time, stay awake, but dare to dream. Good night, everybody. How? Yeah, that's right.
Unlocked and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner, is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Check out the new book, Moon Madness, by first-time author J.W. Hicks. Originally conceived in 2015, this fictional novel only becomes more and more relevant by the day. What would you do if you found out that almost everything your government has told you was a lie? In the year 2103, Jeremy Carlson and his fiancée Brittany Parsons decide to take a vacation in a lunar cabin. Everything was going great until strange things started happening after they went to sleep. Are they being abducted, or are they catching moon madness, a strange phenomena thought to be caused by the lower gravity of the moon? After a fateful meeting with a guy named Zach Marshall, things become a whole lot more clear. They are now determined to expose the governing body of the Earth and Moon, known as the World Council. Will the three of them succeed, or will things go horribly wrong? Find out in the great novel, once again, by first-time author J.W. Hicks, called Moon Madness. Available now on Amazon, $12 for paperback, $7 for Kindle. Not adding this to your bookshelf would be madness.